Hello, everybody. Um, Today I have a book for you guys. It's called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And it's a story about Reginald Lewis. I'll kind of give you a background about it. How I kind of came across this book was interesting. I was thinking about negotiating my contract, and I had a good friend of mine send me this book. And I looked at the cover. Obviously, the title of the book is very funny. But when you dive into it, it was a very interesting story because it said, it talked about a prominent lawyer that turned into a businessman, and how he created this billion-dollar empire. And I was thinking to myself, why was this the first time I heard this story? I heard about Robert Smith, I heard about Jay-Z, I heard about tons of other different stories, but I hadn't heard this particular story. And so it kind of came at a really interesting time. And as I dove into the book, I learned about his story, and the story was kind of similar to mine. He wanted to started off playing football, kind of realized that football wasn't the way for him, and he switched and putting all his work into becoming a lawyer and ultimately becoming a businessman. And I thought this story was so powerful because for me growing up, I thought, or the way it was kind of put out there to me was the only thing that I could be successful at was some form of entertainment, whether it was play football, basketball, be a rapper, whatever that case may be. And so to have a story about a person who started playing a sport and realized that he can excel in something else and put all of his energy into that, I think it was an amazing story, a story that more people should know about. It should be more mainstream than it is. A story that kind of, changed the way I viewed a lot of the things that I, gone through in my life. And, he was an amazing man, did a lot of amazing things. And, I think a lot of people should check that out. A lot of people have been hitting me up about what I was reading to help me prepare myself for negotiations. And this was definitely one of those books that gave me the confidence to push forward. So, shifting to football. What you got?
You played against Dalvin Cook quite a bit the last few years, but what is he like, especially compared to the running backs you've seen already this year?
They run a very similar scheme than the Titans did. I think the biggest thing, he's obviously a little more quicker, still hits the holes. They still, they give him the rock a lot, and he is very fast. So, if you're not in your gap, you're not gas sound, it's kind of different. Derrick Henry, he might run through or he might, run you over, whatever. But, if you blink, he might be through that hole. And so we have to be very gap sound. We have to know when they're going to give him the ball and, understand he's the guy that kind of gets everything going. Once they establish that run game, it opens up their playbook. So, if we can stop that, then we can stop a big portion of their playbook.
When you start watching film on a new opponent, preparing for the upcoming week, what are the first things that you look for, and how often do you end up watching individual games? Does that depend on how often you've played that team, your familiarity?
Yeah, I think it depends on, how many times I've played the team. It depends on, where is it at in the season? You know what I mean? Like, is it early in the season where they have a new coordinator and maybe I'm watching, some of the stuff that the coordinator did on his previous team before he got there. But typically I like to look at formations. I like to look at who their playmakers are and, figure out, start playing the game in my head. If I was a offensive coordinator and I had these amazing, weapons, how do I get them open? And so, I try to think the game from that perspective. And as I'm watching the film, I'm also, self-scouting, seeing what we did good and what we didn't do good last week. And, this is a copycat league. So I know that if they don't have a play that we did bad on, they're going to find a way to put that play into the first 15 or whatever. So a lot of it starts with self-scouting, seeing what we did good, seeing what we did bad. And then, I check out, who their playmakers are, how they like to get them the ball. and then I start thinking about scheme and figuring out how they like to attack similar defenses to us.
Vikings basically been a fifth member of the NFC West. You guys have played them pretty much every year, so there's a lot of familiarity there. Are you seeing anything different from them offensively than what they've done in the past, or is it much the same?
Not really. I mean, I think they're the same, but I think what they are really good at is they're really good at attacking coverages, weaknesses. And so whatever they figure out, what coverages you're in or whatever, I think they put a play in specifically for you that week. To try to attack your weaknesses in whatever defense, because every defense has a weakness. And so they do a really good job of kind of hiding similar things. They have a bunch of personnels, but if you really look at it, it's pretty much the same formations. It's just different people at different spots. And so as you're watching the film, you're trying to figure out, why is this guy here? And see if you can make a player be a beat faster.
Teammates with Al Woods a couple times now. Just what do you see now to him? I think it's year 11 for him, and he's coming off. What do you see now to him?
Man, he's just been a force up the middle. Definitely a guy like myself. I notice it. When I'm running free and able to make those tackles. A lot of it is because of the work that the D-line is doing up front to make sure that I'm free and I'm able to move. So he's definitely a guy that I'm extremely happy to have back. He always asks me after the play, like, did the center get to you? Like, what can I do better? And so, you love having guys like that, and, Christmas will be good for him.
I like how a quarterback takes care of their offensive line. Do you take care of the interior line guys?
For sure. You got to take care of those guys, man, whether it's food, whether it's whatever they want. Those guys really look out for me, so I like to return the favor.
How has the more 5 defensive linemen you guys use changed things for you? How different?
Say it one more time.
Using more 5-2 and 5 defensive linemen, how's that changed things for you?
It makes it a little bit slower because, there's some moments where there's 2 gapping, and so I can't really, shoot the gap all the time. But, I mean, there's also that aspect where, it keeps me clean a little bit as well. And so I think it has its benefits, and, we're just trying to work through it, and it's been good.
Did you do that at Utah State?
Man, I don't even remember what I did at Utah State, to be honest. I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. I didn't have a gap at Utah State. It was basically react to what the front did, because we didn't have the biggest D lineman. And so that was actually one of the things coming out. I guess the knock on me was they thought that I read slow. I was reading the plays slow. And, when I explained to them, like, I'm doing what the coaches told me to, they said, like, hey, you don't have a gap. You have to just make the whole line right. So a lot of it was just reacting to who was in what gap. And I definitely feel like it helped me react faster.
So you didn't move until you saw the defensive tackle or end miss his spot or whatever?
I had to figure it out. Filling gaps. Just filling gaps on the fly. It could be the A gap. It could be way over there. It could be over there. It was really kind of like, playing in the backyard, finding the person who had the ball.
So when you got to the NFL and guys actually were doing their jobs, what kind of revelation?
No, I didn't say they weren't doing their jobs. I didn't say that. Utah State, do not come at me. Cameraman, make sure. All right.
But the fact that you then had your own responsibility instead of everybody else's, how different or revelation was that to play linebacker now?
It was nice because, I think I always looked at it, I'm older now, but I always looked at it from an accountability standpoint. So I just thought that the league just had, more accountability and more people on their job and more more attention to detail. So that's kind of how I looked at it. I didn't really think about it, but it was just nice because I knew where I was supposed to be and I didn't have to worry about anybody else. I had my job in the run game and I had my job in the pass game. And as long as I did those things, I was successful.
You say teams, like in the pre-draft process, teams would tell you, hey, they would tell you that it looks like you're taking too long to read the play?
I didn't talk to all the teams. The first team, ironically, that pointed that out was Seattle. And Coach Norton let me know about it a lot. He watched like 30 plays of me not reacting, or I guess he's saying I'm not reacting fast. Even if I made the tackle in the backfield, he was very hard on me for sure.
Did he understand your explanation?
He didn't care. He didn't care.
In the Vikings' final drive to the game-tying touchdown, Tannehill completed 7 out of 7, a lot of checkdowns. Was there a coverage problem there, or did you just tip your hat to it?
I don't think it was a coverage problem. I think it was just he was taking advantage of what was available. I think we were obviously we were trying to get the ball down the field, and so we were playing a little bit deeper. Realizing what they were trying to do, and he was just checking it down to the running back over the ball, and we were rallying as fast as we could. But sometimes that's just a weakness in the defense where everybody has responsibilities dropping, and you would think that you just give the ball to the shorter route and rally up and tackle it.
Bobby, I know it was a losing effort, and you didn't really want to talk about it too much on Sunday, but 20 tackles, career high for you, team record. I mean, just looking back on that, how much of a groove were you in on Sunday versus maybe?
I kind of still feel the same way, to be honest. I mean, it was cool. Definitely, watching the film, I definitely felt like I had a good beat on the ball. But at the end of the day, like when it comes in a loss, it doesn't necessarily feel the best, and there's no way to really kind of wrap your head around that. I would trade, a bunch of those tackles for the win. You know what I mean? So it's cool. It's something that's I might look back whenever I'm done and saying, I was able to accomplish something like that. But, in this moment, I'm just trying to figure out how we can just be better. How can I be better? And, get more W's than L's.
You talked earlier about how they attack coverages. They've always, they've had Adam Thielen for a long time, but adding Jefferson and Osborne a couple of years ago, just how much more dynamic is their passing game with those weapons they've had?
They're pretty dynamic. It's kind of like the same dynamic, to be honest. I always had a lot of respect for Stephon Diggs, and so you kind of remove him from the situation and add, a younger guy like that. It's kind of the same thing. They're both amazing receivers, and they're going to find a way to get them to rock. And so, in my mind, I just kind of substituted those two.
Do you think there would be to a place where a defensive player has a fully guaranteed deal like Kirk has?
We will have to have a lot of leverage. We will have to really understand your value and your market. I think a lot of the leverage that Kirk Cousins had came from him being franchise tag those multiple years. And so, when he got franchise tag those 2 years, that third year, it made it really hard for, Washington to sign him back because his number was so crazy. But in doing so, his number being that high, that's kind of was the starting point in the negotiations. And so it was just a really good situation for him, and he took advantage of it.
Think a pass rusher could get there? Those franchise numbers, not as high, but kind of high too for defensive guys.
It would take a very special player, because at the end of the day, I think we all know quarterbacks are quarterbacks, and it's not like you can just find another one. So that's the leverage that they have, regardless of their numbers and regardless of the stuff that they do. A lot of the times, teams don't like to change their quarterback. When they find one, they want to keep them, regardless of what the record is, regardless of how everything is going. And so he found a way to really maximize that. But there's nothing in the CBA that says we can't have guaranteed contracts. And so it just has to be more of a push, but it has to be a collective push. It can't just be one person. So I don't see one person changing that. I see a group of people changing that. But that would take all of us coming together, obviously making some sacrifices, and trying to get that done. But hopefully it comes. Hopefully it comes one day, and we'll see.
Part of that was because he took a shorter deal, right? You think players would benefit from doing that in general?
I'm always in favor for a shorter deal, because it helps to help you capitalize on the cap, the salary cap, that and that all that just keeps going up and up and up. And so you want to be able to try to capitalize that. Even if you watch the way LeBron's done his deals over his years, it's not like he's been the highest paid in the league all the time. He's taken the most money he possibly can in that short period of time, and then he was back at the table with the cap or whatever they have significantly higher, and so he's been able to kind of offset what he's kind of sacrificing that moment for what he gains later on.
Receiver drops at the end of the game in coverage. Was that just strictly because of game situation, or was it because Julio was having a lot of success with those crossing routes early in the game? It looked like Tannehill was able to feather a few throws just over the top of your...
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a combination between a lot of things, so that definitely played a part. Obviously, Julio was, catching the ball, and so, we wanted to be conscious of that. And, even, a couple of the other receivers had, some open passes that they end up dropping. So, you just want to be mindful of it.
Obviously they had the one big run. How did you assess the overall, especially looking at the film, kind of your overall run defense on Sunday?
I thought we did well in the first half, and I thought in the second half we didn't do the same things that we did in the first half, and I think that was a big thing. We our gap integrity wasn't great, and our lanes weren't great, and our angles to the tackles weren't great, and so first half was done well. We just have to sustain it, the whole game.
Based around what you've seen through the league for the first 2 weeks and yourselves with TJ last week, how much do you guys have to talk about the taunting rules or have it in the back of your mind? What's being interpreted this year?
I don't know. You got to be conscious of it, right? You got to be conscious of it because it is a thing. But at the same time, it's like, how do you control emotion? You know what I mean? How you control that type of emotion, especially like that's part of the game. It's always been part of the game. That's what, in my opinion, attracts people to the game is, that moment. Like even when you say, Reed's play is, it's in the fourth quarter. It's a big moment. He makes a great play, and it's not even anything that was that big. And I've watched that done plenty of times. And so I think the biggest thing is the consistency of that call, because I watched a game where somebody did that and they didn't say anything, and I watched another game where they did something even less than that. And I watched a game where a dude like dragged like 5 defenders and then he flexed by himself, like he wasn't even talking to anybody, and they flagged him. And so you can't take a game full of emotion and passion. You can't take that away from the game. And so maybe we have to just turn away from the guy and not look at him. But the passion is going to come out. If you love what you do, you're going to have passion for it. So, it'll be very hard for somebody to make a play and not feel good about that play if they love what they do. So it's an adjustment. I think it won't be something that's here for a long time, in my opinion. So we'll see.
When you make a play like that, how unnatural is it to think, oh, I got to turn away from this guy?
It's unnatural. It's unnatural. I'm not thinking about it, especially like growing up. Like, it's fun to talk trash to other people. That's why we like other. You watch all these different games, or you watch like Jordan play, or you watch Kobe and all these different people. Like the rivalries that we love, like the Lakers versus the Celtics, Bulls versus Pistons. It wasn't just the game. It was, man, I hope Jordan get into it with that dude he got in a fight with yesterday. You know what I mean? So it's all a part of the game. And so, I understand what they're trying to do. I understand. But I think there's other things that we could focus on besides that. But, who am I?
This is off topic, but how much have you talked with Ken Norton about his dad's boxing career?
A little bit. I definitely talked to him about it because, I lost a parent, so I understand, talking about that parent is not always the easiest thing, especially when your parent was as successful as his dad was. And so I think over the years we've talked more and more about it, and I've become more aware of like key moments, like when he passed and certain things like that. And so you kind of, not like, you don't really speak about it around those times, but I mean, what his dad did was amazing, and what he was able to accomplish and things like that was amazing. So, you definitely as a kid you want to, continue your parents' legacy. And so the conversations that we have has been amazing. Even like, you know, the little things that he says about how he wasn't able to watch the fights or go to the fights and things like that. And I'm just like, you know, that's crazy to have your dad be like a superstar and, you know, you don't want to go there. And so the conversations have been cool. I've done a lot more research after I've, you know, found out some of the stuff that he was doing. And, you know, it's impressive. And so that's why, you know, whenever I'm around him, I try to box Coach Norton. He don't ever box me back, though.
He said he didn't go to the fights. Was he just too young, or he?
I think his pops wouldn't allow him to.
Anything else, guys? Thank you, Bob.
Appreciate it.